Welcome back to Smoke Barbecue Source, and today I'm doing the first cook on the Weber Stealth. And I decided I'm gonna do a brisket because we're gonna challenge this pit and see how it runs. I'm still going to do a review on the Weber Stealth, but first I just wanted to bring you along with this first cook. We can enjoy it together and see how it performs. I did a pretty tight trim on this brisket because honestly, we don't like a lot of fat. And seeing that this is a prime brisket, I did trim a little bit of that fat off of the point side because I like a little bit of extra bark in my bite. I know a lot of people say that they keep their scraps for sausage, but I actually do make sausage. Some of them just say it so they can feel like they're kind of cool. And now's the perfect time to save it because we're getting into October. Verse time. And this is way too good of a chunk just to throw in the trash. This is prime beef, and you always want a good and sharp knife when you're trimming up brisket. And look at this bag of trimmings. Once I add some pork to it, that's easily gonna make 15 pounds of sausage. This isn't a competition trim, this is just a eaten brisket, and it is a little thinner on the flat, but beggars can't be choosers, and I don't want to waste all of that. And typically around here, I just end up chopping up the flat for some pulled beef. Our slices will come out of the point. Now you can use any type of barbecue rub that you want. I'm using a big flaky and loaded with pepper and salt for this brisket. Now, I'm not gonna get into really big details on how to cook a brisket. We're just actually seeing how this Stealth performs. While this sets and sweats, let's get this Weber Stealth fired up. I already did the burn off and the seasoning on this pit, and I also took the time to download the app, register it, and set up the Wi-Fi. Now your main power button on this pit is right underneath the hopper. Your controller will light up, start rebooting, it's gonna say SmokeFire and Weber Connect. And it's 70 degrees in here, which is pretty nice, and that's being read right from that probe in the center of the pit. Now this brisket, I'm gonna be running at 275 degrees today. So we just crank it up and then press in that button, and now we're gonna hear this pit start to kick in. Now it says I'm supposed to keep the lid closed when we fire it up. I'm a little nervous about that because I've seen other pits implode from the gases that are inside it. But this pit, it leaks a lot of smoke, and I noticed that when I was doing the burn off. So it's not super tight, and it has the vents on the back end where all that smoke is gonna escape. I'll bring it back when the Stealth is preheated, and then we'll get that brisket under some smoke. Now it only took a little over 10 minutes for this Weber Stealth to get up to 275 degrees. I let it run for another 5 minutes just to distribute that heat throughout the chamber. So let's open up our lid, and we'll grab this beautiful brisket, and I wanna put it on the left-hand side because the right side, I think, cooks a little hotter. And I'm also gonna put the point end towards the fire pot. Now this brisket, it's trimmed pretty evenly, but I do see where I could have a little pooling, so I'm gonna take this little chunk of wood and we're just gonna dome it up right in the center because I wanna make sure that all the moisture runs off this brisket while it's cooking so we can develop a little better bark. Now I'm gonna close up the lid and I'm gonna set a timer for 1 hour, and then I'm gonna come back and we'll take a look at it. My 1 hour timer went off. Let's go ahead and see if this rub is starting to stick. I will say that this pit has been smoking pretty dang good so far. It really hasn't backed off much. You can certainly see that it's starting to get some smoky color on this brisket, but the rub isn't set yet, so we gotta give it a little longer. This is a good time to get a few probes into that brisket. Weber supplies you with 2 probes, but on the controller itself, you can actually hook up 4. But for today, I'm just gonna use one of them. Come on, there we go. You can hear it, it beeped, and it's reading 79 degrees in here now, which it's not quite 79 in here. This pit doesn't have a probe port. They show on the manual, you gotta put it up behind the lid. I'm not a huge fan of this, but there is already a gap there, so it's not gonna matter much. We'll get this first one right in the thicker part of that flat and close it back up so our smoke doesn't run away. Typically, I do not check any of the chamber temps until I've ran a pit about 3 times. But for today, I am going to put in 1 ambient probe just to see if that controller is matching up to what my signal reads. Get that power on. Same thing, open up the lid, scoot it from underneath, and I'm gonna place this one right near the fire pot. That'll work. Plus, I'm gonna put in a meat probe, and that way I can check and see if the Stealth probe is pretty close to this one. And we'll place this probe in about that same position. Now, this isn't a scientific test or anything, but I do like to check and make sure that the probes that they send you with these pits are pretty dang close to what my signal says. On every single cook, I always trust what my ThermoWorks Signals says. I'll keep setting a timer for 1 hour, and once that rub is set, I'll bring it back and we'll give that brisket a spritz. I'm a little under 3 hours into this cook. I'm gonna guess that that rub is set. Let's give it a spritz. Yep, it's set. It needs some moisture. We'll douse her down good because we do not want this to dry out. Now every hour, I'll go ahead and put on some moisture before we put it in a pan. But it's looking pretty good for only being in there for about 3 hours. And you also can see how quick that moisture got sucked into that brisket. So it certainly doesn't hurt to give a little extra before we close it up. Now the Weber Stealth also has some alerts that we can go ahead and program on this controller. Now you can also use the app to do this. You can set a temperature alert or a timer. You can also stop it or adjust it. As far as testing out the ambient temperature above that fire pot, I've seen a temp swing of about 30 degrees. And honestly, that's what's helping this pit smoke so much, because you're getting that up and down temperature swing. Every few seconds I hear a few plinks and plunks of those pellets dropping into that fire pot. Because we all know when a pellet first hits that ignition, that's when it's producing the most smoke. If it sits there and it's just an amber, then it just kind of retains the heat. The probes, they're only off about 3 degrees, and that's probably because I have one set a little deeper than the other. I'm gonna crutch this brisket using a foil pan today, and I'll bring you back when we start developing a really good bark. I'm 7.5 hours into this cook, and I'm really happy the way this bark is starting to look on this brisket. When I reached an internal temperature of 175 degrees, I wasn't really satisfied with the way this bark was looking, so I gave it another 10 degrees. But now, I'm really starting to like it, so let's pan this up. Now I did rotate it a little over 90 degrees so this brisket would start to even out a little bit on its cooking temps. Grab our brisket, and I also, when I rotated, I took my little block out. I'm gonna have to adjust my ambient temp probe here a little bit because this pan's pretty big. Now I'm sure a lot of you were wondering why I was storing this beer in the back. Well, I'm actually using this as my braising liquid. Just start out, pour it in a little bit, and this liquid is gonna help build up some moisture, and that's why it's a crutch. This is gonna actually help us get this tender a lot faster. And I'm gonna leave those probes right in where they're at, and hopefully I can close this up still. There's not a lot of slack when you have to go up through the top of that lid with these probe wires. Now my flat is on the right-hand side because the fibers on the point are gonna break down a lot quicker. And I'm really trying to get this flat nice and tender. Like always, I'll just set a timer for another hour, and I'll monitor these temps, but I'm thinking this brisket will be done right around 210 degrees. I'll bring you back when it's time to pull off this brisket. I'm 10 hours into this cook, and we've reached an internal temperature of 210 degrees on this brisket. My guess, it's done. Let's get it out. Always make sure when you're taking off the foil, you let some of this steam come out because this is gonna be hot. Oh yeah, zero resistance, good little jiggle. This baby is done. We'll pull out our probes. Now I'm gonna leave the aluminum foil off from this brisket so it stops cooking. Plus, I want this bark to set up, so we'll just place it on the cutting board, and then we'll wrap it up with foil and let it rest for an hour. Now we'll go into the shutdown cycle on the Stealth, get our probes out. We just hit the menu button, then scroll all the way down to shutdown, hit the middle button, and then go one more time to shut down. And now it's gonna go into our cool down cycle. Now the next time you see me, we're gonna be slicing up that brisket, so I'll meet you at the cutting board. Let's talk a little bit about the Weber Stealth. The first thing that stood out to me is that pit smokes a lot. One thing that I was really interested in seeing after I finished up that cook is seeing that there's no deflector plate, how much ash was like on the grates. Well, there really wasn't that much. It was a little discolored on the right-hand side where I wasn't cooking, so there wasn't any grease on those grates. And there really wasn't that much on the back side of the hopper by the vents. I thought that was gonna start to build up, and it pretty much stayed the same throughout the whole cook. And the second thing that I wanted to check was was if there was any buildup around that grease catch. After burning off this pit and doing a 10-hour cook, there really wasn't that much at the bottom of that chamber. Now, if you're looking for more information on the Weber Stealth, check the description below. Plus, if you want to tell us about your experience with the Weber Stealth, or if you have any questions, leave a comment below. But enough blabble, let's slice up this brisket. Now I will say, I got some really nice bark. We'll cut her right about here. Show you this point. Oh yeah, that certainly is some good pink lipstick, and we have some good moisture in it. Cut off just one slice here. Nice and tender. I ain't gonna complain about this. No way. Looks good. Now for me, every single time that I review a pit, I'm really excited to see what the smoke flavor profile is like. So, take a bite. Oh yeah, very good. Now let's get into this point. Nice and juicy. Let's try a chunk of this. I'm still very impressed with that smoke ring and the bark. I can say that the Stealth did an incredibly great job. I mean, just look at that. That is tender and juicy. So far, so good with this pit. And she's jiggly. Great barbecue flavor, good smoke profile. So to make it simple, the Weber Stealth passed the grade on its first cook. Good job, Weber. I don't know if that's really gonna show up, but there's some juice in there. Now I have a few more tests that I want to do on the Weber Stealth before I actually do the review. So make sure you subscribe and turn on that notification bell. Doesn't hurt, doesn't cost you anything. But we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next video.